Ethan Kane woke up in the middle of the night, his heart pounding. His small apartment was quiet, but something felt off. The air was thick, heavy, like someone else was in the room with him. He sat up, rubbing his eyes, trying to shake off the strange feeling. Then he saw her. A woman stood near the window, her figure barely visible in the dim light. She wasn't just any woman. Her skin shimmered softly, as if touched by stardust, and her silver eyes glowed faintly in the darkness. Long, flowing hair cascaded down her back, moving slightly as if caught in a breeze that wasn't there. She was breathtaking, otherworldly. Ethan's breath caught in his throat. He should have been terrified. A stranger had somehow entered his locked apartment in the middle of the night, but something about her presence made it impossible to scream or move. Instead, he whispered, "Who are you?" The woman didn't answer. She simply stood there, watching him. There was something familiar in her gaze, as if she had been looking at him for a long, long time. Before he could say another word, the air around her shimmered, and just like that, she was gone. A dream, or something more. Ethan blinked, his mind racing. Had he imagined it? He quickly turned on the lamp beside his bed and scanned the room. The door was still locked. The window was shut. There were no signs that anyone had been there. For the next hour, he sat awake, trying to convince himself it had been a dream. But deep down, he knew the truth. It wasn't. This had happened before. It started a week ago. At first, it was just a strange feeling, like someone was watching him while he slept. Then, he started waking up at exactly 3:12 a.m., feeling the same heavy presence in the room. And now, he had actually seen her. The thought sent a chill down his spine. Who was she? And why was she coming to him? A plan for answers. Ethan wasn't the type to believe in ghosts, aliens, or anything supernatural. He was an engineer. He believed in facts, science, and things that could be explained. If something strange was happening, there had to be a logical reason. So, he decided to set a trap. The next night, Ethan placed his phone on a shelf across the room, camera pointing toward his bed. He set it to record and then try to sleep. But sleep didn't come easily. His mind raced with questions. What if she was dangerous? What if this was some kind of experiment and he was the test subject? Finally, exhaustion took over, and he drifted off. Then, at exactly 3:12 a.m., he woke up. The air was heavy again. She was there. Ethan fought the urge to panic. He lay still, pretending to sleep, barely breathing. Then he heard it. A whisper. Soft, gentle, but in a language he didn't understand. He wanted to open his eyes, to see her up close, but his body felt frozen. His heart pounded as the whispering grew softer, then stopped. Then, just like before, she was gone. The shocking footage. As soon as the room felt normal again, Ethan shot up and grabbed his phone. His hands trembled as he stopped the recording and hit play. At first, there was nothing, just the dim glow of the streetlights outside his window. Then, movement. His blood ran cold. She was there. The camera had captured everything. She appeared out of thin air, standing just a few feet away from him. Her glowing eyes watched him as he slept. And then, something impossible happened. She reached out and hovered just above him. Ethan's heart pounded as he watched her fingertips hover just inches from his skin. Her lips moved, whispering words he still couldn't understand. Then something even stranger. His own body reacted. The moment her hand hovered near his forehead, his face tensed, like he felt something even in his sleep. And then, she disappeared. The impossible becomes real. Ethan sat in silence, staring at the screen. This wasn't a dream. This wasn't his imagination. This was real. And whatever she was doing to him, it was affecting him. He exhaled sharply, his mind racing. He needed answers. And the next time she came, he would be ready. Ethan Kane barely slept the next day. His mind kept replaying the footage from the night before, The mysterious woman appearing in his room, whispering in an unknown language, reaching out to him as if she was trying to connect with him. She wasn't human. That much was clear. But what did she want from him? Ethan had never been one to believe in things beyond Earth. He was an aerospace engineer, a man of logic and reason. Yet here he was, staring at undeniable proof that something impossible was happening right in his own bedroom. His hand shook as he replayed the video again. He paused at the exact moment her fingertips hovered near his forehead. Something about that moment made his skin tingle. He didn't know why, but it felt familiar. As the clock ticked closer to midnight, Ethan made a decision. Tonight, he wouldn't just watch. Tonight, he would confront her. Waiting for her, Ethan prepared carefully. He placed his phone on the shelf again, making sure it had a perfect view of the room. Then he sat on the edge of his bed, fully awake. He didn't know how she got in. She wasn't using the door or the window. She simply appeared. That meant she would come again. And this time, Ethan would be ready. The wait felt endless. Every tick of the clock made his heart pound louder. Midnight passed, then 1 a.m., then 2 a.m., then 3:12 a.m. The air changed. A strange energy filled the room, making the hairs on Ethan's arms stand up. The temperature dropped slightly, and the silence grew heavy. Then she appeared, face to face. She stood near the window, just like before. Her skin glowed faintly, a soft light that seemed almost unreal. Her silver eyes locked onto him, unreadable, mysterious. But this time, Ethan wasn't pretending to sleep. "Who are you?" His voice was firm, steady. The woman didn't move. She simply watched him, as if she had expected this moment. Ethan stood up slowly, his heart pounding. "I know you can hear me. I know you've been coming here every night. What do you want?" For a moment, she said nothing. Then she spoke. "You are my mate." The words sent a shiver down Ethan's spine. Her voice was soft, melodic, but the meaning behind her words made his stomach twist. "Mate, what does that mean?" he demanded. She stepped closer. Ethan tensed but didn't back away. Up close, she looked even more unreal. Her skin wasn't just smooth. It had an almost luminescent quality, like polished pearl. Her silver eyes weren't just glowing. They were alive, shifting like liquid metal. "You do not remember," she said softly. Ethan clenched his fists. "Remember what?" She raised her hand toward him. Instinct told him to move, but something deep inside him, something beyond logic, told him to stay still. Her fingertips touched his forehead. And suddenly, his world shattered. Visions of another life. A surge of memories that weren't his flooded Ethan's mind. A vast sky filled with twin suns, towering cities made of smooth white stone. A ship, sleek and alien, soaring through the stars. And then, her. He saw her standing beside him, not as a stranger, but as someone familiar. Someone he had known before. Someone he had loved. Ethan gasped, stumbling back as the memories faded. His breath was ragged, his head spinning. What did you do to me?" he whispered. The woman, no, the alien, watched him with sadness. "I gave you back a piece of yourself." Ethan's mind reeled. It didn't make sense. This wasn't possible. He had never left Earth. He had never been to another planet. He had never met her before. And yet, deep inside, something felt right, like a puzzle piece clicking into place. The truth begins to unfold. Ethan took a shaky breath, trying to make sense of what was happening. "You said I was your mate," he said slowly. "Why? What does that mean?" The alien woman hesitated, then spoke. "You are not fully human, Ethan Kane. You were never meant to live only on Earth." His chest tightened. "That's not possible. I was born here. I grew up here. I have parents, a life." "No," she interrupted gently. "You were taken, long ago, brought back before you could remember. But your body knows the truth. Your mind is just beginning to awaken. Ethan shook his head. This was crazy. It had to be a mistake. But then he looked into her eyes, and somehow, deep inside, he knew she was telling the truth. Everything in his life suddenly felt wrong, as if he had been living inside a dream that was never meant to last. He swallowed hard. If what you're saying is true, why now? Why are you mean to me now? The woman took a deep breath. Because they know about you, and they are coming. Ethan's blood ran cold. Who? She stepped even closer, her voice urgent now. The ones who took you away from me. The air grew heavy again, a warning hanging between them. Something big was coming. Something dangerous. And Ethan Kane had just become part of it. Ethan Kane stood frozen, his mind struggling to process the alien woman's words. They are coming. Her voice was calm, but the warning in her silver eyes sent a chill through him. His heart pounded as a terrible question formed in his mind. Who were they? And what did they want with him? Ethan swallowed hard, forcing himself to focus. Tell me everything. Now. The woman hesitated, then nodded. My name is Kyra. I am Zerathian. And you? She paused, as if searching for the right words. You were never meant to stay on Earth. Ethan's stomach twisted. That's impossible. I was born here. I grew up here. I have memories, a life. Memories can be changed. Kyra interrupted softly. And lives can be rewritten. Her words sent a shiver down his spine. He wanted to argue, but deep inside, something about what she was saying felt right. Like an old song he had forgotten, but somehow still knew the lyrics to. Prove it, he challenged. Kyra took a deep breath. I already have. A hidden past. Ethan stared at her, confused. What do you mean? She stepped closer, her glowing silver eyes locked onto his. The memories you saw when I touched you, they were real. Ethan clenched his fists. That doesn't make sense. How could I have memories of a place I've never been? A life I've never lived? Kyra hesitated before answering. Because you weren't always here. Ethan felt the ground beneath him shift, as if reality itself was slipping away. 25 years ago, you were taken from our world. His breath caught in his throat. You were supposed to grow up among the stars. You were supposed to be with me. But something happened. You were stolen and hidden on Earth. Ethan shook his head. No, that's not possible. My parents are not your true parents. Her words hit him like a punch to the chest. They raised you. They love you. But they did not create you. Ethan staggered back. His whole life, everything he thought he knew about himself, was suddenly a lie. The enemy approaches. Before Ethan could speak, Kyra tensed. Her silver eyes flicked toward the window. They are near. Ethan turned sharply. Who? Who's near? She didn't answer. Instead, she grabbed his wrist and pulled him toward the door. We have to go. Now. Ethan resisted. Wait, you still haven't told me. A loud thud shook the apartment. Ethan's heart jumped. That wasn't a normal sound. It was heavy, like something large had landed nearby. Then, the lights flickered. Kyra's grip on his wrist tightened. They found us. Ethan's pulse raced. He didn't know who they were, but judging by the fear in Kyra's eyes, he knew one thing. He didn't want to meet them. Before he could react, the entire window shattered. Glass sprayed across the room as a black-clad figure dropped inside, moving unnaturally fast. Ethan barely had time to process what he was seeing before another one landed behind them. They weren't human. Their suits were sleek and metallic, their helmets smooth and featureless. They moved in eerie silence, their glowing blue visors scanning the room like predators locking onto prey. Ethan's instincts screamed danger. Kyra didn't hesitate. With a flick of her wrist, a pulse of blue energy shot from her hand, slamming into one of the intruders. The figure flew backward, crashing against the wall. Ethan's jaw dropped. She had powers. The second intruder lunged at them. Zara pushed Ethan back. Run. But Ethan didn't run. His adrenaline kicked in, and before he even thought about what he was doing, he grabbed a metal lamp from his nightstand and swung it with all his strength. The lamp connected with the intruder's helmet, sending sparks flying. The figure stumbled. Sarah seized the opportunity. With a graceful leap, she landed a powerful kick to the intruder's chest, sending them crashing through the broken window. Silence. Ethan panted, his hand shaking as he stared at the two fallen figures. What just happened? Sarah grabbed his arm. There will be more. We have to go. Escape into the night. Ethan barely had time to throw on a jacket before Sarah pulled him out of the apartment. They sprinted through the dark streets, the cold night air burning Ethan's lungs. His mind was racing. Who were those people? Why were they after him? And how had Zyra fought them so easily? But there was no time for questions. Zyra led him through alleyways and back streets, moving with a grace that Ethan couldn't match. Every time he stumbled, she was there, pulling him forward. Finally, they reached an old, abandoned parking lot on the edge of the city. Zyra stopped, scanning the area. Ethan bent over, gasping for breath. Okay, now can you tell me what's going on? Zyra placed a hand on his shoulder. Her expression was serious. They were hunters. They were sent to capture you before you could remember the truth. Ethan wiped the sweat from his brow. Who sent them? Zyra's silver eyes darkened. The ones who took you from me. Ethan stared at her, his heart still pounding. And what do they want? She hesitated, then whispered the words that would change his life forever. To erase you. Ethan Kane's chest rose and fell rapidly as he tried to catch his breath. The cold night air burned his lungs, but he barely noticed. His mind was racing, trying to piece together the impossible truth. He wasn't who he thought he was. His life had been a lie. And now, some unknown force was trying to erase him. His fingers tightened into fists. Why? What did they want? Zyra stood beside him, her silver eyes scanning the darkness. Her body was tense, ready for another attack. We can't stay here, she said firmly. More of them will come. Ethan swallowed hard. Who are they? Zyra hesitated, as if choosing her words carefully. They are called the Orcs Dominion. They are hunters, and they do not stop until their target is eliminated. Ethan's skin prickled. Eliminated, you mean? Yes, Zyra said, her voice grim. They were sent to destroy you before you could remember the truth. A chill ran through Ethan's spine. Someone wanted him dead. But why? I don't understand, he said. If they took me from you, why wouldn't they just kill me then? Zyra's gaze softened. Because they needed you alive. For a while. You were part of a bigger plan. But now, you are a threat. Ethan's jaw clenched. A threat to who? Zyra glanced around, then whispered, to the ones who control this galaxy. Running out of time. A sudden hum filled the air, low and vibrating. It made Ethan's bones feel like they were rattling. Zyra's expression darkened. They found us. Before Ethan could react, a blue beam of light shot down from the sky, striking the ground just a few feet away. The impact sent a shockwave through the parking lot, cracking the pavement. Ethan stumbled backward. His ears rang. His heartbeat roared in his chest. Then, a sleek black ship descended from the sky. Its surface was smooth, absorbing the moonlight, almost as if it was made of liquid shadow. Symbols glowed faintly along its hull, pulsing with an eerie blue light. The Orcs Dominion had arrived. Sarah grabbed Ethan's wrist. We have to move. Now. But it was too late. The ship's underbelly opened, and 4 figures dropped down, landing without a sound. Their armor gleamed under the streetlights, their featureless helmets glowing with the same eerie blue light. Ethan took a step back. His instincts screamed at him to run, but his feet felt frozen. One of the hunters stepped forward. When he spoke, his voice was deep, emotionless. "Surrender the target." Zara stood her ground. "Over my dead body." The hunter tilted his head slightly. "That can be arranged." Then, they attacked. The fight for survival. The first hunter moved like a blur, rushing toward Syra with inhuman speed. Ethan barely saw her react. 1 second she was still, the next she was moving like lightning, twisting out of the way. A pulse of blue energy shot from her palm, slamming into the hunter's chest. The force sent him skidding backward, but he didn't stay down for long. The second hunter lunged toward Ethan. His body reacted before his mind could catch up. He ducked just in time as a blade of pure energy sliced through the air where his head had been. They were trying to kill him. Panic surged through his veins, but something else rose with it. Instinct. The hunter swung again. This time, Ethan moved without inking, spinning out of the way just in time. His reflexes were too fast, faster than they should have been. Something inside him was waking up. Zara fought fiercely, her movements smooth and precise. She was a warrior, but there were 4 of them. They circled her like predators, forcing her into a defensive stance. Ethan's mind raced. "I have to do something." Then, he saw the hunter's weapon. The second hunter had dropped something when Syra blasted him, a small metallic device with glowing blue symbols. Ethan didn't know why, but he recognized it. Without hesitation, he grabbed it. The moment his fingers touched the device, a jolt of energy shot up his arm. The symbols on the weapon changed, shifting into a pattern Ethan didn't understand. Yet somehow, deep inside, he did. He gritted his teeth and squeezed the device. A pulse of pure energy erupted from it, slamming into the nearest hunter. The impact sent the armored figure flying backward, crashing through a concrete wall. Ethan's breath hitched. What was that? Zara saw what he had done. Her silver eyes widened in surprise, but also in something else. Pride. "Your power is waking up," she said. "We need to go. Now." Ethan didn't argue. More blue lights flickered above them. More ships were coming. Zara grabbed his hand, and this time, when they ran, Ethan didn't feel weak. Something inside him had changed. He didn't know who he really was yet. But for the first time, he wanted to find out. Ethan Kane ran as fast as his legs could carry him, his heart pounding like a drum. Kyra was ahead, her movements swift and graceful, leading him through the dark alleyways. Behind them, the sky glowed with an eerie blue light. The Orcs' dominion was still hunting them. Ethan stole a glance over his shoulder. More ships were descending. The sleek black vessels hovered above the city, their glowing blue symbols pulsing like a heartbeat. They wouldn't stop until he was captured, or worse. His breath came in short gasps, but something felt different. His body didn't feel as weak as before. The energy pulse he had fired back at the hunters. It shouldn't have been possible. Yet, somehow, he had done it. What am I? Before he could process, Syra suddenly skidded to a stop and raised her hand. "Stay down," she shouted. Ethan barely had time to react before a blast of blue energy streaked through the air, striking the ground just inches from where they stood. The impact sent shockwaves rippling outward, cracking the pavement. Ethan ducked behind a rusted car, his pulse racing. They were gaining on them. Zara clenched her fists. "We can't keep running forever." Ethan took a deep breath, steadying himself. "Then what do we do?" She turned to him, her silver eyes filled with urgency. "You have to fight." Ethan's stomach twisted. "Fight." Against them. He gestured toward the Orc soldiers closing in. "They're stronger, faster, and trained. I don't even know how I used that energy back there." Zara grabbed his wrist, her touch firm but reassuring. "Yes, you do." Ethan shook his head. "I don't. Listen to me." Ira's voice was fierce. "The power inside you, it's always been there. You just don't remember how to use it yet." Ethan stared at her, His mind screamed that this was insane, but deep down, something told him she was right. Unleashing the power within. The Oryx hunters moved in formation, their movements precise. Their armor gleamed under the city lights, their energy weapons humming with power. Ethan's hands trembled. His instincts told him to run. No, not this time. A strange calm washed over him. His pulse slowed. He could feel something, a warmth, a power deep within his chest. Sarah stepped back, giving him space. Focus, she said. Feel the energy inside you. Let it flow. Ethan closed his eyes. He thought about the moment back in the parking lot when he had grabbed the weapon. The energy had felt natural, like an extension of himself. He took a deep breath. And then, he felt it. A pulse. A rhythm. Like a second heartbeat. It spread from his core to his fingertips, an electric sensation that made the hairs on his arms stand on end. The power was waking up. Ethan's eyes snapped open, and they glowed. The first battle. The first Oryx hunter charged forward, swinging a blade of pure energy. Ethan barely had time to think. His body moved on its own. He dodged left, his movements sharper, faster than before. Then, without knowing how, he raised his hand. A blast of golden light shot from his palm, slamming into the hunter's chest. The Oryx soldier flew backward, crashing into the side of a building. Ethan staggered, staring at his own hand in shock. Did I just do that? Sarah smiled. Yes, you did. Another hunter rushed toward him. This time, Ethan didn't hesitate. He stepped forward, his body surging with power. He ducked under a wild swing, then countered with a punch, except his fist crackled with golden energy. Boom! The hunter was sent flying backward, skidding across the ground. Ethan's chest heaved. He was doing it. He was fighting back. But there was no time to celebrate. The leader of the Oryx squad raised his weapon, a long spear that glowed with dark blue energy. Zyra's expression hardened. Be careful. That's not just any weapon. Ethan didn't need a warning. His instincts were already screaming at him. This one was different. Stronger. The Oryx leader pointed the spear at him. You are not ready, lost one. Then, he struck. A desperate escape. Ethan barely dodged the first attack. The spear sliced through the air, leaving a crackling blue trail behind it. The Oryx leader moved with inhuman precision, his strikes fast and unrelenting. Ethan tried to block, but each attack sent shockwaves of energy through his body. He was strong. Too strong. Zyra lunged in, trying to help, but another Oryx soldier blocked her path. Ethan gritted his teeth. He had to do something. Fast. Then, he noticed something. The energy inside him. It wasn't just reacting. It was trying to guide him. He closed his eyes for a split second, listened, and then he moved. Just as the Oryx leader thrust his spear forward, Ethan twisted, dodging at the last possible second. A golden energy surged through his leg as he spun and kicked, hard. Crack! The Oryx leader stumbled. It wasn't much, but it was enough. Zyra saw the opening and grabbed Ethan's hand. We have to go. Now. Ethan hesitated, but more Oryx ships were descending. They were outnumbered. With one last glance at the Oryx leader, Ethan turned and ran with Zyra. They disappeared into the shadows, leaving behind the stunned Dominion soldiers. For the first time, Ethan didn't feel like a helpless target. He felt like a fighter. Ethan's breath came in short gasps as he and Zyra dashed through the city's dark alleys. The distant hum of Oryx ships still echoed above them, but for now, they had escaped. His body felt alive. The power inside him still pulsed like a second heartbeat. They finally stopped near an abandoned warehouse. Zyra pressed her hand against the metal door, and a small blue cycle glowed beneath her palm. The door slid open silently, revealing a dimly lit space filled with old machinery and scattered crates. Ethan stepped inside, still trying to process what had happened. He had fought back. He had used some strange energy that felt like it had always been a part of him. He turned to Xyra, his mind full of questions. "I need answers." Xyra nodded, closing the door behind them. "And you deserve them." She gestured for him to sit on a crate while she paced the room, her silver eyes lost in thought. Finally, she stopped and faced him. "You are not just human, Ethan. You never were." Ethan stiffened. His pulse quickened. "Not human." "What do you mean?" he asked, though deep inside, he already knew. The things he had done, the power that had awakened inside him, it all pointed to something far beyond normal. Xyra took a deep breath. "You are part of a lost bloodline, a race once feared and respected across the galaxy. You are Neferi." Ethan frowned. Neferi. The word felt familiar, as if it had been buried deep in his mind, waiting to be uncovered. Xyra nodded. The Neferi were an ancient race, gifted with energy abilities unlike any other. They could manipulate pure energy, shape it, use it as a weapon or a shield. They were warriors, protectors. Her voice lowered, until they were wiped out. Ethan's hands clenched. "By the Orcs' dominion." Xyra nodded grimly. "Yes, the Dominion feared the Neferi's power, so they hunted them down, erasing their entire existence. Or so they thought." Ethan's chest tightened. He was supposed to be extinct. Then, how am I alive? Xyra hesitated, then looked at him with something like sorrow. "Because you were hidden, smuggled away as a child. Your memories were locked, your powers suppressed, and you were placed on Earth, where the Orcs would never think to look." Ethan's mind spun. His whole life, his normal life, had been a lie. His hands trembled as he whispered, "Who did this to me?" Xyra's expression darkened. "Your mother." Ethan froze. Xyra stepped closer. "She was one of the last Neferi. She sacrificed everything to keep you safe. But now, the Dominion knows you're alive, and they won't stop until you are dead." Ethan swallowed hard. His mother had saved him, but at what cost? A new purpose. Ethan stood up, his fists tightening. "So what do we do now?" Xyra studied him carefully. "You must awaken your full power." Ethan exhaled sharply. "I don't even know how I used it before." Xyra placed a hand on his shoulder. "You will learn. I will train you." Ethan met her gaze. For the first time, he saw something in her eyes. Hope. She believed in him. And strangely, for the first time, he believed in himself too. The training begins. The next few hours were intense. Xyra led Ethan to the warehouse's lower level, a hidden chamber filled with ancient-looking technology. The walls were lined with glowing symbols, their light pulsing with energy. "Close your eyes," she instructed. Ethan obeyed, taking a deep breath. "Feel the energy inside you. It is not something you summon. It is something you let flow." Ethan focused. At first, there was only silence, but then he felt it. A soft hum, a vibration inside his chest, growing stronger with each passing second. "Good," Xyra whispered. "Now, control it." Ethan exhaled, raising his hand. He pictured the energy inside him moving, shifting, flowing like a river. Suddenly, his palm glowed with golden light. Xyra smiled. "Yes. Now, shape it." Ethan narrowed his focus. The energy in his palm twisted, forming a small glowing orb. It floated above his hand, pulsing with life. He was doing it. But then, a sharp pain shot through his skull. Ethan gasped, dropping the energy ball. The glow vanished. He staggered back, clutching his head. Flashes of something, memories, flooded his mind. Voices, faces, a woman with silver eyes calling his name. And then, a voice, deep, commanding, familiar. "You are not ready." Ethan's eyes snapped open, his breathing ragged. Zyra was watching him with concern. "What did you see?" she asked. Ethan shook his head. I don't know." But he did know. Someone was trying to reach him. And whoever it was, they were waiting. "The storm is coming." Before Zyra could say anything else, a sudden rumble shook the warehouse. Ethan's body tensed. Something was coming. Zyra grabbed a small device from her belt, pressing a button. A holographic display flickered to life, showing a fleet of Orc ships descending toward their location. Her face hardened. "They found us." Ethan's pulse quickened. They weren't ready. He wasn't ready. But the fight was coming, whether he wanted it or not. And this time, he wasn't running. The ground trembled as Orc ships descended from the sky, their blue lights cutting through the darkness. They had found Ethan and Zyra. Ethan clenched his fists. He wasn't ready. His powers had only just begun to awaken, and now the Dominion's strongest warriors were coming for him. Zyra pulled out her energy blade. There's no turning back now. Ethan exhaled sharply. No more running. No more hiding. He had spent his whole life believing he was just another human. But now he knew the truth. He was Neferi, and he would fight. The battle begins. The first Orc soldiers landed, their armor reflecting the eerie blue glow of their weapons. There were at least 20 of them. Ethan felt his heart pound. "Can we take them all?" Zyra smirked. "We don't have a choice." The first soldier lunged, swinging a blade crackling with energy. Ethan moved on instinct. He dodged left, then countered with a pulse of golden energy from his hand. The blast sent the Oryx warrior flying, crashing into a metal crate. Ethan stared at his own hand. It felt natural. Another enemy charge, this time faster. Ethan ducked just in time, then raised both hands. A surge of golden light shot forward, hitting 2 soldiers at once. The warehouse filled with flashes of energy as Zyra fought beside him. Her blade cut through the air, striking down enemies with deadly precision. But more kept coming. An Oryx commander stepped forward, taller and more powerful than the others. His armor was lined with dark blue markings, a sign of high rank. "You are not ready for this, Lost One," the commander growled. Ethan gritted his teeth. "Then let's find out." Awakening the true power, the Oryx commander moved faster than Ethan expected. A powerful strike from the commander's energy spear sent Ethan flying backward, crashing against a metal pillar. Pain shot through his body. Zyra tried to rush to him, but another group of soldiers blocked her path. Ethan struggled to stand. His vision blurred, his head throbbed. He wasn't strong enough. But then, he heard a voice. "Remember who you are." The voice echoed in his mind, deep, familiar, powerful. A memory flashed before his eyes. His mother, holding him as a child. Her silver eyes filled with love, but also with warning. "One day, you will have to fight, and when that day comes, awaken." Ethan gasped as a wave of energy exploded from his body. The golden light burned brighter than ever. The pain faded. His strength returned. He looked down at his hands. They were glowing with pure Neferi energy. He was ready. The turning point. The Oryx commander hesitated, sensing the change in Ethan. Impossible. Ethan didn't wait. With a single step, he closed the distance between them. His speed was beyond anything he had ever felt before. He dodged the commander's attack with ease, then struck with a fist full of golden energy. Boom! The impact sent the Oryx commander skidding across the ground. The other soldiers faltered, fear in their glowing blue eyes. They had underestimated him. Zyra took advantage of their hesitation, cutting through the remaining warriors with swift, precise strikes. The battle was turning in their favor. Victory and a new path. The Oryx commander staggered to his feet, breathing heavily. He studied Ethan for a long moment. "This is not over," he said, before tapping a device on his wrist. In an instant, the remaining Oryx soldiers vanished, teleported back to their ships. Ethan and Sarah stood in silence as the enemy ships retreated into the sky. The battle was won, but Ethan knew this was only the beginning. Tyra turned to him, her silver eyes filled with pride. "You did it." Ethan exhaled. "We did it." For the first time in his life, he felt like he belonged. No longer just an ordinary human. No longer afraid. He was Nefari, and the fight for the future had just begun.